First of all, as I do every time we do the Gillmor Gang from our studios, are we recording? Excellent. Okay, are we also live on TechCrunch? Excellent, okay. So I'm going to let John Borthwick introduce the two new guests to the show, but Robert Scoble is a frequent contributor to the Gillmor Gang. As often as we can get him when he's not overseas or in the shower or on the moon or whatever he usually is. And also, John Borthwick is
when
a regular.
When I do the Gillmor Gang from the shower, that'll be an interesting.
Yeah.
That'll be aimed right at Larry Page.
Just going to get another sore throat. Okay.
So quick
John Borthwick is also a frequent contributor, and he will introduce our other two guests.
So today we got joining the gang. We have Doug Rushkoff, old friend, co-conspirator here in New York, author, writer, thinker, troublemaker, sort of. Right. And then speaking of troublemakers, Paul Davison from Highlight, and so company which is an investment we made at Betaworks and is right deep in the ambient data space. And it's thought a lot about all the contextual internet stuff, which we've been talking about today here at Betaday.
Fantastic. So, Robert, you were at the Google announcements yesterday. Can you give us a quick shot on this? We're going to do this the way we normally do this, which is we talk about Google. I make fun of Google. I then talk about Apple because I'm a huge Apple fanboy, and then
I have an Apple.
Yes, I know. Robert is covered, but what about Google I/O? Was that an important event?
Yeah, I think it was. It set up a whole bunch of foundational stuff, a lot of contextual stuff. The mapping improvements that came out yesterday were really pretty interesting. They came out with a contextual SDK. This SDK uses very little battery and can already discern 4 contexts, so walking, running, biking and driving, I think, were the 4 contexts, similar to the Moves app. We don't yet have really good context awareness. That's probably going to come in the next 18 months. They showed off a new development tool, so if you're using Eclipse, you might want to look at their new development tool. It looked pretty interesting, but there was some arguments about that. There was a raft of Google Plus improvements, including a bunch of new photo stuff, which was really cool. They're moving toward automatically improving your photography because, like with this Google Glass, if I take a picture of you, I don't have any way to improve that picture when it's uploaded. So they're doing all sorts of algorithmic stuff to tone map you and figure out where your face is and improve the quality of the photos that are being uploaded to Google+. And then they're also trying to automatically pick the most interesting pictures because they know you're going to overshare with this kind of thing. You're going to put, I'm already putting 5 times more pictures up than I used to with my
and
cell camera.
When you point like that, you mean?
Yeah, I can take a picture here. Boom. So I just took a picture of you guys. And I can take a picture by saying, okay, Glass, take a picture. Okay, Glass, take a picture. There you go. And
when you repeated yourself, was that because it didn't hear you?
It didn't hear the first time,
so,
and I can see it didn't pick up. I have the new Wink app. So one of my friends is a software developer, and he compiled the app and put it in here. And sometimes it catches my winks, but very rarely. So there's actually
a picture with the wink.
Yeah, there's actually a little sensor in here, which I tried to get Larry to talk to me about it, and he wouldn't talk about anything glass.
Well, he was probably disturbed that you were winking at him.
Well, he put the sensor in the damn things.
Doug Rushkoff, are you afraid of Google?
No, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm just glad he's wearing the glasses so I don't have to. You know, he'll wear them and report back and can use his experiences to figure out what I think. But no, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of Google. I might be afraid of Google's shareholders, you know, more than I'm afraid of Google. You know, just sort of the pressure on them to, you know, to grow quarter over quarter, and that might lead them to make decisions that are less than optimal for the, you know, the humanization of technology. But no, in general, no, I'm not afraid.
Do you think that they've contributed back to the open source community equal value that they've extracted from it?
No, but I think that would be hard. That'd be
Well,
hard,
they-
because it's
they-
not what they're buying. It's not what they're built to do. You know, they're a publicly held corporation. If they were going to contribute back to the open source community, that what they've extracted, it would be against their essential program.
So for the audience that doesn't know who you are, what is your context?
I'm just a human.
'Cause
I'm
Steve
a
was
human.
trying
I'm a human. I'm a fan of digital technology. I love the possibilities of technology to enhance who we are and what we do. And I get very concerned by the sort of the unacknowledged operating system underneath all of this technology, which is just corporate capitalism. You know, it's the willingness that we have to be so disruptive of every industry, but not to be disruptive of the marketplace. It's like, you know, revolutionary kids all running to Goldman Sachs, you know, to have their Series A or Series B, and it's like, dude, that's so old. You know, that's the most conservative approach I think you can have to technology, rather than we've actually got the stuff that can flip this whole thing around.
What do you mean by the humanization of technology?
Well, using it for human ends. You know, I feel like a lot of us have this sense that technology is moving towards some singularity where it becomes smarter than people, and human beings are really only valuable insofar as we can help information reach greater states of complexity, and once computers are better at doing that than people, then we might as well dispense with people. You know, this kind of zombie apocalypse singularity future that we think is coming, rather than putting humans first. You know, realizing that technology is here as an extension of who we are and what we can do, rather than a replacement.
Where do you think glass falls within that?
So yeah, that's where I was going to go, because I have some thoughts on that.
Speak up a little, Paul.
Yeah.
No, he was asking where does he think glass fits into that? What, you know, this new wearable, because glass is just the first of many products.
Yeah.
I saw another competitor come out yesterday. So.
I think the glass itself is rather neutral. What we decide the platform we use to run glass, that'll have biases in it that hopefully we'll recognize as we choose what operating system we want to use to augment our reality.
Yeah, I think that also, I mean, it was when we did the video interview discussion with you about 3 weeks ago about glass. You know, one of the things that really struck home for me is the technology is not that sophisticated, right? It's fairly basic, but I think it's the metaphors that are embedded in there. Even the name glass, right? The fact there is no finder, the fact that you're just looking at the world, and there is this sort of auxiliary computing interface that sits next to it that has an auditory. Those decisions are going to impact, I think, the sort of in the same way the Windows and the file system and the and the Finder have impacted the way we think, and the keyboard.
That's why I say that this, to me, is an Apple II moment. You know, when I unboxed the Apple II in 1977, I knew, first of all, it was expensive. My dad spent, I don't know, $3,000 on it. It had no apps. We forget that. There was no apps for the Apple II. It had a cassette tape drive, so getting apps onto it was a trial. It was geeky, and it was certainly not for the mainstream. But it changed the world. From the first moment of unboxing it, you knew your world has changed.
Right.
You didn't know how it was going to change. You just knew that this machine was going to kick off a 20, 30-year exploration into the future. And that's how I feel with this. This has changed my relationship with the internet, with the computer, because it is a computer here.
Yeah.
But I don't think of it as a computer. It's not a computer like my laptop, you know, where I push a little mouse around and I type and I do things. Here I talk to it, or I touch it, and that's it. I don't have a keyboard. I don't have a gestural system yet. So
Think of how profound it is to have an information product that you look through to see the world.
well, first of all, you're not looking through it.
I know, but that's
Yeah.
where it's probably
That
going,
was
right?
a-
Right now we go from peripheral display to eyeglass overlay to
Well, there's a
contact
whole
lens
bunch of
overlay.
trade-offs that Google made. I think you really, to understand where this product
Yeah.
is going, you have to look at the trade-offs they made to get it out.
Yep.
And it's not out yet, right? It's still 8 months away before the rest of us can buy it.
Yeah.
Cost is a trade-off.
Yeah.
It's clear these are aiming at $200, $300 price point. If it's more than that, I don't think it's going to be a mainstream. It's going to be something for vertical industries, and that's not what Larry Page is dreaming about.
To your point, I think the exciting thing about what's happening here is that they're pushing the thinking forward and creating this whole new space that other people are rushing in to start thinking about now. Think about when the first iPhone came out. It was similar. We had these terrible, terrible phones for a long time. Then Apple came out with their first effort, and all of a sudden the industry was transformed, and everyone started thinking about touchscreen, and it really forced everyone to up their game and start thinking about this stuff. And I think a similar thing is happening here. I mean, it's going to be a while before wearables become mainstream, but whether you're talking about a watch or a peripheral or an eyeglass overlay or contact lens overlays or other things that happen in the future, it's definitely going to happen, and that's the exciting part.
So back to the trade-offs. So cost is one, battery life is another one.
Yep.
The battery on this, if the projector comes on, so if I turn it on, I did a 6-minute video and it took 20% of the battery. So it's about an hour to 2 hours of on time. Right now it's off. That's another thing. Before getting this, I didn't realize, it's off most of the time.
Yeah.
It's just there.
But it's all solvable.
Yeah.
It's
interesting though. I don't see myself using one.
Did
You know, maybe it's because I'm old,
When you first
whatever.
heard about Twitter, did you see yourself using Twitter?
Yeah.
Really?
But
'Cause most people didn't.
But
When
not
I
not
was
in
the
a
first-
social context. I could see
most
myself
people-
using it at
Well, I just want to
yeah.
comment on that. Most people like me, we didn't see why we were going to use Twitter, but we knew we were going to eventually.
I didn't have that
I think-
relationship.
well-
how many people here thought they were going to be on Facebook when they first heard about Facebook? You know, a lot of audiences I talked to about it said, "What?"
Well, I still don't know
Why would
if
I be on
want to
something?
Facebook. So
But Twitter's the same thing, and people used
I'm
to
trying
write
to
on
make
my
a different
comments
point.
that this is the lamest
Doug's
thing
point,
I've ever
I think,
seen.
was that it's not a given that this device that you're using is going to be something he's going to use. In
Well,
fact,
and
he's
I
saying the
feel like
opposite.
I would use it. I mean, I like to use this stuff at work or at specific play, but not in a seamless way in my life. I mean, I'm finding the more I know about digital technology, the more I want to be mindful and conscious of the ways I'm employing it, and really enjoy when I'm
Except
off
that,
it.
You know, I've discovered with the iPad Mini, for example, and clearly this device, that once I start to use Siri, for example, and I am successful with it, I start using it all the time because it's easier, it's faster, and you know, I start, if I'm looking for news, to the panel earlier today about journalism, it may not be edited by the Economist editorial board, but I've taught myself to be able to use real time as a way of parsing the news stream. And I think that we start to use these devices a lot more rapidly than we think we're going to originally.
Yeah, there's just a sense of moving through a scored reality. I was just talking to Summer before about
It's really interesting, though.
dodgeball.
Look at the people in the front
Yeah.
row. Every single one of them has a device except for you. I don't know what's wrong with you, but
But beyond whether that's a good
oh,
thing,
you're a VC. You're
He's
already
got the eyeglass overlay.
beyond whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, though. I mean, we're at work here in a sense. So the fact that people are using industrial
I
tools.
see people using these things because now that I'm very mindful, because this woke me
Yeah.
up as to what people are doing. They're using these things in the bathroom.
I see that too.
They
And the
make fun of
bathroom
me
is
walking
a
into
whole
the
other
bathroom,
story.
but they
Did
don't
the
mind
senator
bringing this in.
from Scoble yield to the gentleman so he can finish his thought?
Right. I was just talking with Summer before about dodgeball or Foursquare, whatever we call it, and what it's like to go to a place and find out who else has been there before. You think you're discovering something, and all of a sudden it's there. The sense that if you're moving through your regular world, through the world through which you discover things and people, and you are now being informed one way or another of, oh, well, over here there's going to be this, over here there's going to be that. It's a different way of moving through your life. And I would argue it's a great thing if you are in a foreign city and you've got to find a bathroom. All right, pop them on. Where? Just there. Okay, I'm going. You know, because but there's a point at which some technology-free moments in life are valuable.
I don't think anyone disagrees with
Yeah.
that, right? I mean, you can have that with these devices.
I don't wear it in bed.
Beautiful.
There are limits.
But I mean, Paul, your app,
Yeah.
Highlight,
Yes.
incredibly intrusive and privacy draining.
It's completely opt-in.
Exactly.
I don't think it's intrusive.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that it is, but that's both its detriment and it's also its feature. It's the reason that we downloaded it in the first place. But we find out something different once we start to live with it. It's the technology, finds its own level.
I completely changed how I do Facebook likes because of Highlight, because it exposed to me that we're all sharing our likes with each other in real time, and I wanted a different set of likes than I had 18 months ago. Right?
And I think that, I mean, in an interesting way, sort of the happenstance or the sort of getting away from technology in order to like increase social interactions. Highlight, admittedly a technology product, but actually promotes that for me because I see random people who are sort of one hop away from me on the graph. And that's how you were near the office, right?
Yeah.
You were near Betaworks and you just pinged me on Highlight and said, oh, I'm around the corner, can I stop by?
Yeah.
Right? And those kind of interactions actually increase the happenstance.
You're allowed to, right. So we have technological ways of reintroducing randomness into lives that have been randomness depleted because of technology. And we can optimize it. We can select our randomness quotient for my day. And we go 71% randomness.
There was nothing random about me stalking John Borthwick.
I put this seemingly random filter on top of it, though.
I did not ping. I mean, I walked into Bloomingdale's here, last year when I was here, and the head salesperson's on Highlight too, and that's a totally different experience. But I did not ping an average everyday person. I saw John was on my Highlight, and that hit a certain level with me of somebody I wanted to talk to and meet, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, Doug, to your point, I take a thyroid replacement pill every day because a test showed that I'm down. Are you suggesting that there's something bad about replacing that which has been lost?
No, but I would suggest, that there are probably deeper and more subtle ways to look at why are you not producing enough thyroid, that you have to take the Synthroid. And are you out of sync with something, with your day-night rhythm?
Oh yeah,
not
I'm
working
way out of
right?
sync.
Right, you're out of sync because you're working late into the night, not going to sleep. I mean, so you look at what rhythms, human rhythms have you been denying that have compromised your thyroid, rather than taking the substitute.
Well, here's how I view it. I mean, I think that right now in this room, there's so many interesting conversations you could have, so many interesting connections you have with people, so many interesting people with fascinating backstories. And that happens every day as you walk around the city. The problem is to learn those things, there's this huge activation energy because you have to walk up to these people you have no context about and query them and ask them to tell you about themselves, and that's
Plus
weird.
They're talking on their phones.
Yeah, and well, that's weird and risky and scary and intimidating, and so our default is to just not do it. We sit with our headphones in on the subway and we stare awkwardly at our phones and we're at an event and don't meet people, and when you can surface those connections and that metadata in this ambient way, it changes how people act. It makes people friendlier, they smile more, they talk more, they remember people's names, they see these hidden connections they have with everyone around them, and we see this all the time. People write to us all the time. And they talk about these amazing conversations and connections they've had with people because it's less risky to go up to someone standing next to you and say, wow, how do you know my brother? That's really cool. Or that's awesome that you make that product. I love that product.
It's more socializing.
Is Jake Levine
But-
here?
He is.
Is Jake Levine here?
Right there.
Yeah, he's on Highlight, so I'm looking him up right now. You know Brady Forrest, huh? you guess.
All right, well, that brings up another point. Which
You're
is-
connected to him on Facebook.
I know Brady.
You know Brady.
I don't think people can hear this on the cast. So basically, he asked whether you knew somebody, and you said, "I guess." So I want to drill down on.
He's just
He's
going
being
to
funny.
hold the
So
slide
we're-
for the embarrassing. What's he going to ask me next about Brady?
I understand why he said what he said, but I'm going to use it as an
Yeah.
excuse to talk about something else, which is that the concept of friendship has obviously been altered by these proximity devices and this always-on real-time environment. And there's a lot of sociology that falls out of that. Like, how do you? I mean, many times used to. I don't do it anymore. I would friend somebody on Facebook just because I was embarrassed about not doing it. Because
Is that related to proximity devices, or is that related to Facebook?
Well, now that over 50% of all Facebook impressions are mobile, yes. There's a tremendous amount of gestures, as Robert called them, that we now have to adopt in order to fend off.
Oh, you friended them because you felt bad in person about not doing it. Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
I remember way back in Facebook, they would put people in 6 categories because they were trying to structure data around the friend graph and just have 6 categories. You had to say, is Abdo a friend from school? Is he a friend?
Right.
Is he a relative? Is he this? And I would look at that. So, the first time I got on Facebook, I was fascinated by the idea of Facebook, and I looked at that, I was like, I can't put people that I know in these categories. They just don't. So I'd hit cancel.
Now, those framing devices actually would be helpful, except that if you're like Scoble, it would take you a week to go through all these things. And you showed me this close friends.
Yeah, for people who don't know, Facebook, you can go through each friend and put them on a close friend list, or an acquaintance list, or a family list, or a custom list that you made up. I have 20 lists.
And the thing about close friends is that it taps into the push notification network in a really powerful way. So I want to drill down on push notifications because basically I live by push notifications.
These things?
Yeah, it goes up on the lock screen, and I basically am constantly doing this because there's no way that I can track the, say, 150, 200 people that I stream live tweets in from, but I can see them occasionally. Look who I just pocket phoned by mistake. And
I turned off all my push notifications. I felt like my devices were throwing me into this state of the 911 operator, sort of emergency, interruptive, whatever I'm doing. Oh, Kobe Bryant just scored 32 points. I really just don't give a shit. So, and
But then why did you follow whatever news source?
I don't know.
gives you
It
that
was the default on the AP News application. It was the default to push. And then, so I turned that off, and then CNN's pushing, and then this thing starts pushing. So, but I turn those. I just like a quiet. I like a quiet device, and I'm also. What it helped me get over though was the need to keep up with anything, and I don't. And it's really fun. At the end of the day, I find out, did they catch the Boston Bombers or not? And it was good enough. It was fast enough for me.
So Doug, this is what I meant by we needed to get to this place. Go at it.
This is one of the places where context is really going to be on the forefront because it's the devices we're going to wear are going to know the context of what we're doing. Are we driving? Are we walking? Are we running? Are we shopping? Are we skiing? Are we hanging out with John Borthwick and drinking a nice Scotch whiskey? In the next 10 years, our devices are going to know these things about us, and there's going to be an operating system level API that's going to shove up to all the app developers. Hey, this guy's skiing right now.
Or what?
No.
Are they going to know this?
They're going to know this, and they're not going to use it to serve us, but to market to us and tweak our lives.
Doug, because these things are going to know our context at that level, they're going to be able to be quiet when you want them to be quiet.
When they want them to be quiet, not when I want them to be quiet. I don't
Just
trust
don't use it.
Zuckerberg. I mean, really, these are.
That's not true.
If it's
not
really
true.
serving me,
It's
then
simply not true.
it's not. They're
It's
really.
not true. You can already have granular controls of notifications in lots of apps.
I can't.
Foursquare, for instance, is so granular. I can put you on my do not ever show Foursquare check-ins from Doug Rushkoff.
Yeah.
And then John Borthwick, I'm stalking his ass, so I want to see all of his notifications. And then I only want to see Paul's notifications on Foursquare when he's near
No,
me.
it's true. Just like a cell phone. You can put people in your VIPs of your contacts in your iPhone and have your phone only ring when it's your wife or your kid or your boss, and otherwise it'll stay quiet. You can do that.
So I want to pull this in a different direction
Yeah.
that Steve loves, which is the open-closed sort of thread. I think that one of the reasons why I agree with Robert that you will have choice is because there's going to be so much diversity of data inputs, right? Ricky over there from Nike is going to be sending you data from your wife's fuel band or your dog's fuel band. Scoble's going to be sending you data through a service like Highlight.
Right.
You're going to have all these different services, and what the devices need to do is that they're going to be forced to have a degree of openness. Because if Google Glass does not allow Facebook in, does not allow Twitter in, does not allow sort of, forces everybody to G+, there ain't anybody on G+ right now. And so the people are going to say, okay, it's not a social device, so it's going to restrict the device.
Twitter, by the way, just in the last half an hour, shipped an app for the Google Glass.
So there you go.
So the apps are starting to roll out, right?
The apps will come, and the hardware manufacturers will let the apps in because the apps are that's where people's data live, so as long as there's a competitive marketplace for apps and for data, and then tiled on top of that, I think that there's a degree of importance of people having personal ownership of their own data, which is their ability to be able to take their data and say, this is my data, I'm going to store it, I'm going to do what I want with it, and have some degree.
Do you think that really matters?
I think it matters for some people an awful lot, and I think it matters for everybody for some data. So maybe my health
The problem is,
data.
what's the lowest common denominator of contextual data that's going to get thrown around?
But it matters because it develops competitive strategies among the major players, and that moves us forward in terms of innovation.
Why would Mark Zuckerberg let Twitter take your social network graph data?
It really doesn't matter whether he lets anything happen. It's a matter of whether or not there's pressure being applied, because that will come back in the marketplace and impact on.
Right, so we'll get a lowest common denominators. We won't get the rich data. It's never
That
going to
presumes that we're going to stop. That they are going to stop doing what they were going to do anyway.
But beyond which data we look at, the bias of the operating system is going to be towards making data more important than whatever else we happen to be doing. Because they're only going to be making money if we're spending time with the data. So then the best engineers and interface operators and everybody else from Stanford end up going to work to create interfaces and data streams that are more compelling than whatever else we might be doing.
And that gets to another shift that the Glass, I think, kicked off. I believe Larry Page is shifting Google's business model from an advertising business model where there's an interruptive thing being shown us that we don't really want to see, to a commerce one. And this really is training us to talk to our device and ask for things. Where is the closest Starbucks? How many, and getting to your point, where are my friends checked in right now? I know they're all right here in this room, but if I wasn't here in this room, I'd be asking that, right? Where are all my friends hanging out right now? Where is John Borthwick at? Where can I go and have the best experience?
But in the end, the purpose of the device is to increase economic activity. It can't be otherwise.
Yeah, but if you're not happy with it, you're going to use a different service or a different device. I mean, I think it's still a free market,
as long as you're using a device, yeah.
But I mean, you can choose.
No, he's right. You can be a Luddite and stay off the system.
Which makes you sound like a jaywalker or
No,
something.
it's true. There's lots of people who don't use technology. there's the Amish. They don't use phones. The phones have been around 100 years. They survive just fine. They are very happy people, when you meet them.
And
but I mean, think about
take vacations. People
But
go
we
off
are
the
in
grid.
we are in competition with each other for experiences. For instance,
I
tonight
disagree with that.
we are totally in competition with each other every minute of every day. For instance, tonight I might want to take you guys to Keen's for steak dinner.
As Larry Page said yesterday, this is not a zero-sum game.
It is a zero-sum game. There's 2 tables left at Keen's right now for 4 people each.
Look, I understand
and
your.
believe me, the whole audience can't go to Keen's tonight. So we are in competition with
That
each
would
other.
be a good
for-
reason if everybody was trying to get in there. That'd be a really good reason
I
not
can
to
use
go at
OpenTable
all.
on my iPad and get one of those tables before somebody like that doesn't want to carry a device around, doesn't want to be part,
Okay, but
part
what's
of the system.
all right? So you.
So I'm going to beat him on an
Unsuccessfully.
experience and taking my friends to a great restaurant.
What does that have to do with what Doug was just
Because
talking
we're
about?
all in competition with each other for experiences every minute of every day, and the more devices you get, the more apps you get, the better your experience
Go
is.
ahead.
I think the only reason why that's true, that there is the zero-sum game that you're talking about, is because we're running our digital economy on a 13th century economic operating system. that has to grow. In other words, our economy has to grow in
So
order
your
for the banks to be
concern is-
paid back.
your
That the growth imperative of the industrial age is being amplified through digital technology instead of us using digital technology to give ourselves more time and more genuine human
Here's
experience.
an example. I was sitting on a plane, a United plane. I have TripIt, an app on my iPhone. I had my iPhone on, which was against the rules, I'm sorry, but I keep it on because of this situation.
33% do.
On 33% due. On TripIt, it said your plane is being canceled. It's going back to the counter. It's going back to the gate. I immediately got on another airline and got one of 3 seats left on that other airline out of town.
That's a
that
great
night.
thing. Your device gave you better utility at work. That's what these are for. That's what these are great at.
Nah, this was
God
played,
bless.
but I'm in competition
Yeah, but you were
with you.
in the industrial.
You
you
were
in an
one of the
airport.
100.
That's the industrial.
You were one of the
age.
168 other people on that plane
Let me
that
ask you a
night
question.
that
beat
didn't
them.
get out of town.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Doug,
Because I had access to information.
I got it. The question I have for you is, it sounds to me like you're complaining or you're upset. Is that all right? I'm not calling you a Luddite.
I'm interested.
Okay, you're interested in, I'll put it in a positive spin. You're interested in somehow improving what you call the operating system to the point where it's not just about big data, but it's about what?
I'm interested in what technology companies would look like if they didn't have to grow at the rate of their debt structures. I'm interested in what technology companies would look like if they actually develop technologies purely for the purpose of making people's lives better rather than monetizing the agenda of some corporation or other.
And you don't think that these things make lives better?
I think they might, some of them as a side effect, but I don't look at this. I look at as a way of helping the multiple billions of dollars of Google market cap expand. That I don't see this as about making the world less evil or something.
So when, I'm sorry, I'll let Paul speak in a second. So you're against popular movies because people like them?
No.
Okay, but what if they promote things that change society in ways that you're not happy with?
It happens.
Okay, it happens. So, are we going to be able to stop, multinational corporations or mega national corporations like Google, Microsoft, Apple from, pursuing their existence?
Believe it or not, no, we can't stop them from attempting to pursue their existence, but kids as smart as Google's founders are already alive today who are capable of disrupting that economic operating system as profoundly as Google disrupted mainstream media.
Okay, Paul, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh no, I don't know why you think it's bad because Google, or why you think it's strictly a vehicle for making money. I mean, I think it's like any product. If they're creating an exciting product that people like to use and people pay for that, then they can make a business out of that. But the really exciting thing is the debate about the pros and cons of that specific product's effect on society, not whether Google makes money from it.
No, we're creating an operating system through which people are going to be experiencing an increasing amount of their reality.
Yeah.
If that operating system is optimized towards corporate profit rather than optimized towards human engagement or human social
But I think they're
evolution,
flexible
then
operating systems that have apps built on top of them, and you
But
can choose to use them or
you
not, and you can choose which apps to use,
that's
right?
true,
And
but
I think they
how
have
the operating system is biased will dictate a whole lot.
I think this has the potential to be deeply.
I think that's a deeper. Is the question I have with this? Is this the Apple Newton? Is this not going to get to the fulfillment of the dream of wearable computer assistant? It might be. It might be because I worked at Microsoft and I had a tablet PC that looked sort of like this in 2002, way before Steve Jobs came along and perfected it. It didn't sell well because Microsoft's own corporate structures internally.
No, it didn't sell because it sucked.
And why did it suck?
It was trying to graft, it was Windows 8 only 10 years ago.
And why was Windows 8 forced onto a tablet?
Why did Steve Jobs have to come along and say, no, I'm not going to put the Mac OS on this, even though there's pieces of it there,
Yeah.
but there's nothing like a menu bar, there's no file system to move files
All
around.
right, well,
why
that-
did Steve Jobs get to that
that's
decision,
a
and
good-
why couldn't Microsoft get to that decision?
Well, Microsoft couldn't get to that decision because they have a huge aircraft carrier which they can't turn. They have they own the market. When Steve Jobs turned the I don't know, battleship of Apple, he was number 10 in the marketplace.
So when-
but it's a good point, and I think it speaks to what Doug's talking about too.
But
let
when,
me say it.
But when
Let me
Doug,
say it. Let me say
okay,
it.
go ahead.
I have experience with this guy.
Lots of experience.
Yes.
Batteries.
Yeah. Steve Jobs, I think we've talked about this on the gang numerous times. Steve Jobs had the capability of understanding when the technology and bandwidth and the economic forces all conspired to create an opening to be able to accomplish something like this, or just as Google is doing maybe, and I think that's questionable, with Google Glasses. So,
Yeah. But to get to Doug's point,
yes.
if Google does not satisfy our human needs with this product, i.e. if they sell out and only go after the commercial interests of this product,
Right.
they are going to leave open a space for another innovator to come along and say, oh, they missed the massive opportunity
Either another
of serving
innovator,
humans.
either another innovator or nobody.
Right.
That's the real question: is whether or not whether innovation is naturally going to accumulate based on.
I've had enough experience now with products and this product to know that within the next 10 years, there will be a wearable
are
computer
some-
that will get
I mean-
massively popular.
Yeah.
Is
We
it
can- we
this
can-
one?
we can debate
I
that.
don't know.
We can debate the pros and cons of any specific device and whether we think that specific device will succeed based on those things. Or you can, I think the more exciting thing though is to say, yeah, we've got a lot to figure out, a lot to learn, but I commend Google for pushing forward the thinking in this space. And you hear rumors about iWatch, and you hear about all these other companies that are starting to launch these devices now, and it's clearly going to happen.
The other
And
thing
that
is-
whole debate about what effect that has on society, regardless of which device it is fascinating.
The other thing is this does not stand alone. It is Android on here. It's Android 4.04. You can put an APK, put a Java app on here and run it from your Android source code, and it runs. And it's hackable. It's very open in some way. In another way, it's very closed, but in some way, it's very open. So I think the market is going to figure out how to serve the human demands that Google might not internally figure out.
And we're
right?
going to be able to do eyeglass overlay on top of a pair of Warby Parkers or something else in a short number of years. Contact lenses, they're single pixel, they're really rough, they're really crude, but they're in the lab right now. Like, this is going to happen, right? And
I'm not sure I agree. I mean, my reaction to this is that what Robert calls the trade-offs, I think are very smart, because they tend to eliminate what my concern is about this, which is I don't really want this creepy thing in the corner of my eye. I already have a hard time seeing anything. I really don't want to limit that. I don't like.
Well, you're old.
Well, I may be old, but
Because believe me, I went to a concert the other night and had all these 20-year-olds.
my
They
12-year-old
do not talk to me like you just talked to me, and saying I don't want a creepy thing in my eye. No, they are totally bought into this world. They know this is in their future.
all right, well, I'm gonna wipe the slate clean, and in about, I say 3 months, we'll take a look at this again. My bet is there will be a backlash once
there
this
already
thing
is.
becomes ubiquitous, and to Paul's point, there will be other kinds of devices, and most importantly, a common system fabric, what Doug calls an operating system, which will tend to manage multiple devices in a symphony of effect. That, I don't think, is going to be one device or one way of doing this thing. I think that you've got two devices which you're constantly interacting with. The iPad Mini, but the iPad Mini is, I think, the profound center of where we're going to be for the next couple of years.
Well, for reading text or
Just,
news, it's
just
a lot
in
more.
terms of the combination of getting work done and depositing money to my daughter's account so that she can go out and buy some more shoes tonight.
Okay, Glass.
I mean, here's sort of like the high level view of how I think of this shift. I mean, we spent all of this time over the last 10 years or so mapping out this metadata and these relationships on the web. And now we're all walking around with these insanely powerful sensors that have all of this data about them, and they know who our friends are, and they know what devices are nearby and what places are nearby, and they have GPS and gyroscopes and accelerometers and proximity sensors and microphones and cameras, and they're connected to the web at all times. I mean, we're finally able to take that data and overlay it on top of the physical world. And do you know how ridiculous our grandkids will think it is that we would run into someone we knew and we would not remember their name, and there was literally no way for us to get that data. And so we would avoid eye contact and pretend we didn't see them because we had no way of retrieving that data. Our best friend from kindergarten could be on the other side of the wall, and we would have no idea. We look around this room at all of these people, and we don't know a single thing about any one of them. Do you realize how
Glass.
ridiculous that is? I mean,
Google Paul Davison of highlight.
Infinite ways to avoid doing
I mean,
homework.
There you go.
Look at
Shows
what's
you
happened
all
on the
your
web.
sort-
Right
where's your
now, I
LinkedIn?
think we're at the beginning of this second
Where's your
really
Crunchbase?
special time in history where this new publishing space is opening up for the second time. 20 years ago, it was the web, and today it's the air above our heads. And what happens to the world when you can see information about things by looking at them?
The interesting thing to me will be if we move into a world where I can have your Wikipedia entry next to you, will that enhance or inhibit my ability to form rapport with him in a real world, real time way? Will I perceive his pupils getting bigger or smaller as he agrees with me? Will our breathing sync up the same way? Will we achieve the organic human rapport when we have
I'll give you
so
an
much of our
example of-
consciousness engaged with the data?
I'll give you a real world example. I was at Davos at the World Economic Forum, so I knew everybody I was talking to was interesting in some way. Either they were really rich, or they were really politically powerful, or they had created something in their lives that was interesting. So I knew right away there was a filter there that was interesting. I met this guy, he had a badge on, right? It said Peter Pyatt was his name, so I knew his name, and it said Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then I talked to him for three minutes, and I didn't know who he was. He was not in my social circle. But I'm talking with him for 3 or 4 minutes, you figure out, oh, everybody's genuflecting to him, and he's using very scientific language. He's clearly higher IQ than I am, so I already pegged him as 150, 160 IQ, very smart guy. So I knew, man, this guy's brilliant, and everybody's talking to him about science, and I know he's done something, but I can't figure it out from this conversation. And nobody brags about what the fuck they've done in their lives. Nobody does, right? We don't like to brag about, hey, I wrote a book, fuck that, But go away, do that Google search on him. First word, first line, Wikipedia, discover of the Ebola virus. If I had known that while talking to him, we would have had a radically different experience
You wouldn't have
together.
touched him, yeah.
No,
Okay, I don't
So
want
I
to.
wanna-
I don't want
wanna
to disrupt
actually-
this.
So I want to open. This is a great discussion. I've been silent for the last 20 minutes because I wanted to listen to it. And I wanted to play it out. But it's a great discussion. I view these are fundamental design decisions that we're making. I was about 2 weeks ago. I was with with Andrew from Betaworks, and we were with the team who created the Highline. And the Highline is this incredible piece of architecture park that runs down the west side of Manhattan. And they were explaining to us that they made a design decision not to put any signage on the Highline. No information about the vegetation, no information about the architecture, because they wanted people to experience the Highline, the experience of the object with no information, no data layer in front of it. So I think these are really important design decisions that we're making, and they go to the fundamental metaphors and how we're doing it. I want to open up some questions before we've got about another 10, 15 minutes.
Let me just get this started so we can get a mic to these people. Go ahead. Oh, great.
And
I have a video going up today or tomorrow with Prismatic. So I've been studying you guys at Dig and Prismatic and Flipboard and hearing the different philosophies. And the philosophies are very different. Flipboard just turned on this magazine feature, which is human curated. So Douglas Rushkoff probably would love the human curated magazines. And I find them fascinating. Prismatic is trying to do the same thing with algorithms to keep humans out of it. I think there's going to be a joining of both approaches, but it's going to be interesting to see the technologists,
No, that's
how they go at it.
I mean, look, that's exactly what we learned with Dig, right? With News.me, you can talk to Mike and Jake and Justin and the team with News.me. We were like, we're going to solve this purely algorithmically. And we've ended up with Dig taking and having an editorial layer on top, which is providing a voice and a humanness to the product that I think was lacking. So
Go ahead.
I want to hear from people. Also at the end, I want to hear from Baratunde at the end, because he just took 21 days off the network, no devices, no nothing, and he did it as an information technology diet. He looks skinnier and fitter and happier for it, so I want to hear from him, but
All right, well,
other people.
Let's start with
How did you survive?
this gentleman.
That's what I want.
So,
Can you say your name,
yes,
please?
David Benham. So, I'll stand up.
Is that on the
Yeah, I don't know if the mic's
broadcast?
on.
I think it's on. Yeah, it's
There you
on.
go.
Okay, thank you.
So very good conversation, but on one hand, it got into this idea of like connecting versus disconnecting, which is certainly a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think there's another dimension to this that is implied that I'd like to open up for a minute, which is implied by open and closed. And when you said Apple II, I had an Atari 800. Some people here had TRS-80s. One thing those things all had in common, they had a basic interpreter.
Yeah.
As a kid, you could actually get the software, look at the source code. That was not a problem. You could change the commands in the source code, learn to program just organically.
Yeah.
And it was understood that the technology let you do that. And somewhere along the line, like the idea that technology can be open as a hackable, explorable machine became controversial. The word hacker became criminal. And the idea of exploring systems became dangerous.
Yeah.
And my question with Google Glasses, for instance, is it really a hackable machine? Or is it a closed system? And what are those tensions? Because insofar, before you answer, our technologies are hackable. They invite human self-expression and discovery. Insofar they're not hackable, as distinct from open and closed, not hackable, they become something different. And it's not that these advances can't become hackable machines. Those are human choices in our design. They sometimes are in conflict with corporate profits, trademarks, patents, and control. But to me, that's the underlying debate beyond just tuning off my device. It's can I take control of this device? Can I hack it? Can I change it? And is that okay?
Okay, great.
It's both. If you get it in the core underneath, it's Android and it's very hackable. You can do whatever you want with it as a developer. If you want your app to be distributed, we don't know yet how open this is going to be. Is Google going to choose an Apple model, a curated model, where everything is going to have to be approved by their committee to get distributed? I don't know that yet. I don't know how they're going to charge for apps. I don't know how much this thing's going to cost. There's a lot of questions that have to be answered in the next 8 months before they really release it to the public for me to be able to answer that accurately. I would expect that there's going to be some hackability at some level because it's Android and it's fairly open and they're taking a fairly open approach to that. But at some level, it's also going to be closed and have a curated app model where if you want your app to get in the App Store, you have to agree to their rules. For instance, they don't allow any advertising in, to your point, there is no ads in here. There is no business model that's apparent yet. I think I'm keying in on where the business model is going, but that's a 5-year plow
John, you
forward.
brought this up before. Do you think that Google is open?
I mean, I think that, I mean, at the outset of Betaday, I referred to them as a benign dictator. I mean, I think that they have been one of the more open companies that has sort of inhabited the internet and the sort of the business ecosystem of the internet on the scale considerably more open than most. I think that the architecture of openness that's going to drive and solve these problems is just the physics of there's so much data coming from so many different places. I would like to believe that it's happening because open is a better architectural decision that we're making as an industry, but I think it's actually happening because the physics is so much data, so many apps, and if somebody wants to be an island, if Oakley decide that they don't want their glasses, they're going to interoperate with those, or they don't want it to work with Ricky's fuel bands, then Oakley's going to suffer in sales because of that. And so that openness becomes part of the architecture because data needs to move.
Don't you think it was kind of noticeable yesterday that so much of what Google announced was basically catch up and Me Too with Apple rather than
Or Spotify.
you know,
Foursquare.
basically taking out existing smaller startup services. I mean,
Yeah, I would
it just
say-
didn't strike
yeah.
me as
There is quite
the
a bit of-
actions of an
yeah.
open company.
There is quite a bit Me Too, and Google has no problem copying products, like wholesale, like cloning products, they do it. But I think you also see just the degree to which Google is a software company and a data company coming through, and that's fundamentally different from Apple. I think Apple's software is, you know, its cloud-based software is still not that great, and its apps are not that great, and it's certainly not a data company.
Well, it's also on a certain level. Yesterday felt like Google's first big day since Steve Jobs died. There was sort of a respectable distance after the death. Now they could go, here we are, you know, and we got the glasses, and we got the this, and we got the that. I mean, I felt like, and now their stock's over 900. I mean, I feel like it was like Google is in ascendancy, and they had a day that was as compelling to media and geeks as one of Steve Jobs' days.
Well, I think they're also very forward-looking, right? I mean, they talk about working on these, you know, with a 10-year time horizon, and a lot of the stuff that they're doing right now. I mean, look at Glass, look at self-driving cars, look at more near-term things like Google now. They're investing in the future and investing in AI, and it's awesome. I mean, it's pushing this space forward, but they take a really long-term perspective on
They
it.
explained yesterday how those investments in the weirder stuff, the self-driving car, is paying dividends.
Or remember when they bought Keyhole and SketchUp? It was like, oh, why would they buy that? That's kind of weird.
That
And now it's
sensor's
so
collecting
obvious.
700 gigabytes per minute. It's
Yeah.
a pretty crazy. I forget the number, but it's a pretty crazy number that LiDAR is collecting, and building the systems to deal with that kind of flow of data and that kind of decision modeling really quickly is paying off all across.
I mean, one thing about them as a company is they've always had so much cash coming in the door that they are able, as a company, to take that longer term perspective and invest in stuff that's not directly immediately relevant.
Microsoft keeps taking hits at Gmail, for instance, but Gmail has far less spam than Outlook does. Why? Because of this machine learning. Their machine learning is way better than Outlook.com's machine learning. So
We
Okay,
have
one more
a
question.
question or comment from Michael.
Can you guys talk a little bit
State
about
your name.
oh, my name's Michael again. Can you guys talk a little bit about what's fair? So we've established that, you know, using certain types of prosthetic legs in racing are unfair, and that we know that kids who can't afford internet in their homes are at disadvantage when they go to school. So what about the kids who can't afford glass? You know, if you're allowed to wear that in the classroom and it's feeding you answers, you can pull up Wikipedia. You know, how do you make sure that, you know, where do you draw the line? Because so many aspects of life are a competition.
Well, you know, when I was in chemistry school, we had these Casio programmable calculators, and they were $400, right? So only the rich kids could really afford them. But my chemistry teacher found a unique way to let us use that and still fail us. And she had time-tested tests. If you didn't know the material, it didn't matter what kind of device you brought to her class, you were gonna fail. And because she made sure that if you didn't know the material and didn't know how to pull the formula out of your machine fast enough, you were gonna fail anyways. And she said, that if you're that good a programmer, good on you. You're doing something with your brain that's gonna get you farther in life. And that was true. So we're gonna figure out as a society how to make things somewhat fair,
I
but
think
there is no fairness to life. I mean,
I think
John
to-
can do things I can't do, right? Oh
to,
well.
to Doug's point earlier, I think there's, you know, the devices are the razors, and what they're selling us are the razor blades. So I think that the device is going to go to free, basically.
This thing is clearly designed to be $200. There is no technology in here other than the
Yeah, I
projector.
still don't want it at $200.
Well, at $200, a lot of people will buy it, and it doesn't matter that it gets to 100%. You know.
Can you, you've been given a task here, which is to describe being completely cut off.
Steve, you're missing this.
Oh, what? Douglas Rushkoff is wearing Google Glass. Someone photograph this forever.
Google is the
That
greatest company that ever existed.
He
I
became
love
Robert
all
Scoble.
technology. Please send me an ad now.
We just found his price.
It's not that good.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Somebody else got
give
it.
it back to him.
They're cool.
We'll take
The
pictures
screen
after.
is
All right,
cool,
so
though.
quickly,
It's like
because
a
we're
little
almost out of
diode.
time.
It's nice.
Yeah. So for those who are not in the room, my name is Baratunde Thurston, CEO, co-founder, Cultivated Wit, comedian, author, person. I took 24 days off of email and social media not the whole technological convenience of ordering food online because I'm decent and modern, but I needed some quietness. To Doug's point, I was stressed out. Last year was a very busy, crazy year, launching things and quitting things and publishing things. And I needed the noise to die down. I needed to give my brain a bit more space. The biggest lessons, I'm writing a long feature about all this for Fast Company, but in the short term, I'll say it was harder to unplug than I thought. And I didn't realize the cumulative level of acceding decisions I had made to grant permission to interrupt, permission to link. Everything was super duper integrated. Like Gate Guru was interrupting my life. I don't need that all the time. This random iPhone app, and you have no simple way of opting back out. It's I would describe it as a plane that was designed for perpetual flight, never to actually land. And so you have to wave your hands very loudly and say, I'm going away, I'm going away, I'm going away. And then unplug as many cables as possible, hoping you have as little damage as possible to your reputation, to your presence in this world. If you orient yourself in a hyper-responsive way, as I had for so long, and then want to walk away, that's very difficult.
Yep.
And there are a lot of responsibilities because business happens everywhere. It doesn't respect Twitter versus Facebook versus Gmail.
I got a $1
So it
million
was very
deal for
difficult to impose
Rackspace
that.
on a Saturday night on Facebook.
Yeah.
Which is why when people say, oh, Facebook's only for family photos and stuff.
Well, no,
I go,
everything's for
"Bullshit."
everything because the cost of communication is so low
Yep.
that the idea that there are boundaries and borders is not really respected by everybody. So it was a great. The upshot was it was wonderful. I returned a little bit of my sanity. I'm not a Luddite or hermit in response, but I create a little bit more empty space, and I have a little bit more expectation and desire for those designing to just make it a little easier for us to leave as easy as they make it for us to join.
All right, so as is customary at the end of the gang, I'm going to go around the table, as it were, and have each of you sort of summarize or some sort of takeaway or some sort of argument. Let's start with Paul.
Yeah, I think that I was touching upon this before, but I think that the really exciting thing about the stuff that we're seeing right now is not what we're seeing right now, but where this inevitably goes in 10 years. And I think you're asking very important questions, but ultimately I think it's going to be up to us to guide it the right way. I think Kevin Kelly said something to the effect of technology is a force that is creative, destructive, and inevitable. And there are good, exciting, amazing things about it. There are scary things that we're going to need to figure out, and there's a lot to figure out here. There are a lot of open questions we have to figure out. But this is going to happen, and it's up to us to shepherd it in the right direction. And what we found already by working on this stuff over the last couple of years is that if you do it the right way, and we've got a lot of work to do, but if you do this the right way, it makes life better. Like, we're focused on the people aspect of it, and people write to us with stories all the time about connections, deep human connections that they made that never would happen in this world where you look around and don't know a single thing about anyone. And I think it makes people friendlier. It makes people smile more. They talk more. They remember people's names. They remember where they met people. And so I think we're just at the beginning of this really exciting stage in life. And I just can't wait to see what the world looks like 10 or 20 years from now.
Doug.
I think right now is what matters. I mean, Kevin Kelly's book, What Technology Wants, never made sense to me because I don't care what technology wants. I care what I want, what people want. I'm on Team Human. So I don't look at technology encourages me to think about things as inevitable, whereas humanism encourages me to think of the future as open and unwritten and entirely undetermined. I can pitch my book. John is buying 100 copies of Present Shock for anybody here, or up to 100 for anyone who wants them. There's a sign up in the front. There's a clipboard. If you put your name and email, no, they're not going to abuse, Betaworks won't abuse your email. No. You can have a free EPUB, whatever, Kindle thingy of it. So please do that. One, because I get a ka-ching on my book, and two, because I get somebody potentially actually reading it. So thank you for that.
As a book author, that is a good thing.
John.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a great discussion, and I thought there was a moment right at the beginning when we when I think Steve asked about the first time we got on Twitter, and there was sort of response, sort of, oh yeah, I remember that. There are technologies out there, and I think one of the things I love about Twitter, it was almost a raw architecture. It was barely a product, and that where the social experience, it dominates and comes through. The architecture, the UI, the interface is out of the way, and you just get the raw social experience. And I think that there's, you know, as Paul said very eloquently, I think we're sort of architecting what this next future looks like, and there's an opportunity to make this more human, more social, and there's, you know, I think that in balance, there's a lot of things that can be done with technology that there's good and there's bad, and it's ours to architect how we're going to make this future.
Robert.
So last week I went to SRI, which is the research lab that brought us the mouse, the internet, HDTV, Siri, and a few other things.
LSD.
What's that?
LSD.
Oh yeah, a few good things.
Kind of, it's how it trickled through the tech community.
And they showed me a few things that maybe would be the next debate we have. They showed me a pair of augmented reality binoculars. So they had two 1080p sensors, two 1080p glasses, and they worked like regular binoculars. You could look at things. You could tag things, which was really crazy because you could like tag a building and say blow the crap out of that building, and somebody else with the same binoculars could see that tag from somewhere else in the valley, right?
And the drones would come.
The drones will come. They believe me. Pretty much, you can guess where the military uses of this stuff are. They put virtual actors in the forest, running through the trees, and I was shaking my binoculars, and they were shaking on the ground. Like, I mean, it was mind blowing.
This is the zombie apocalypse.
The zombie apocalypse is coming from. But they also showed me a bank that I could talk to the bank algorithmically, and the stuff that Google showed yesterday, where we're going in a world where we're just going to talk to the Google all day long, with one of these, is interesting. And SRI was showing some of the speech recognition advancements that still need to be made to make this conversational ability really work. Because right now, addresses don't work very well. Putting your name in there, it always misspells your name because it thinks you have an E at the end of your name. It doesn't work.
I pay big money for that.
Yeah.
You know, so there's lots of things that need to be improved over the next 5, 10. That's why I think it is a 5, 10 year thing. And when you get inside one of these research labs, you really get to see sort of the roadmap of what could come out. And they also showed me a new way of working. They showed me a new workspace where everything is tracked. Every button you look at, because they have eye gaze monitors now, everything you touch is being tracked, and therefore they can build new assistive systems to help you work better.
This isn't a summary, this is the next show.
This is the next show, but you know, we always, you know how TV works. You always tease the next show at the end, right?
Good job. All right, I'm going to cut you off.
Okay, there you go. But to wrap it up, this is an interesting new world. We are just at the very beginnings of it. I think it's a 10 to 20 year journey that we're just starting down. It feels a lot like the Apple II did in '77, and look at where it led to.
All right, for me, I'll say the usual stuff that I say. I want to thank Rackspace, and particularly Rob Legess, for making the Gillmor Gang possible. I want to thank NewTek and their TriCaster and whatever technology is being used here for bringing this to video and live streaming. By the way, Doug, Francine Hardaway is in love with you. She just tweeted that just a second ago, yeah. And I think it's because you seem like somebody that she can nurture and help, yes.
It's all good.
With glass on?
Yeah, people are making
I don't know. And
Twitter's going crazy.
I want to thank our guest, Paul Davison. Thank you, Paul. Doug Rushkoff, I'm going to read your book now, I promise.
Sign the thing.
And, oh, that would be great. How do you sign an e-book, by the way?
There's a clipboard, and you put your email on it with a pen. Sign it.
Oh,
So
so
you
you...
want to sign the ebook? I'll sign your Kindle.
Okay.
With a big indelible silver pen.
My Kindle's in California.
Someone figured out some way to do
Okay.
a signed.
I want to thank,
ebook.
of course,
I don't
John
know what it
Borthwick for making this possible. We really appreciate it. And this is a fantastic beta day, and I'm looking forward to the rest of it. And as always, Robert Scoble. I want to thank our producer and director in California, Tina Chase Gillmor. I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. See you next time. Bye-bye.
That was the Gillmor Gang. Thank you very much. Good to have you. Good to have you. Yes, yell my name loudly. It's a smart move.